Section 13 of the Italian Cookbook by Maria Gentile. This recording is in the public domain. 158. Tenderloin with spices. Filetto alla piemontese. Clean and trim the meat, removing all the little skins. Then sprinkle with nutmeg, cinnamon, salt and pepper, and place in an earthen vase covered, together with a bunch of aromatic herbs, sage, parsley, rosemary, onion, carrot and celery, all chopped fine. After a few hours, melt and brown a piece of butter with the aromatic herbs, then remove the latter, and place the tenderloin, leaving it to simmer for half an hour, pricking it often with a large fork or a larding pin, to add its juice to the gravy. Serve hot. 159. Stuffed onions. Cipolle ripiene. Boil 6 large onions for an hour, then drain and skin. Remove the heart with the point of a knife. In the place of the heart, place the stuffing made with 1/4 pound of ham or tongue, chopped and mixed with breadcrumbs ground, 2 tablespoonfuls of milk, 2 pinches of salt, and 1 of pepper. When the onions are prepared and stuffed, place them in a saucepan whose bottom has been greased with butter, sprinkle with breadcrumbs ground, and place in the oven, not too hot. At the time of serving, add some white sauce or balsamella, No. 54. Stuffed onions are served as vegetables, or side dish with roast beef or boiled beef. 160. Stewed onions. Cipolle in stufato. Keep in cold water for half an hour 2 pounds of middle-sized onions. Afterwards skin and place in a saucepan in which pour as much broth as is necessary to cover them. Let them cook on a low fire for an hour if they are scallions or young onions. If they are not, 2 hours are not enough sometimes. When cooked and soft, drain and place in a large deep dish. Brown a piece of butter with a tablespoonful of flour, a cup of broth, salt and pepper. Mix everything and when it begins to boil, pour the sauce on the onions, which must be served hot. 161. Veal liver. Fegato di vitella alla veneziana. Brown a large onion cut in thin slices in oil, and place in the saucepan the liver cut in thin slices. Brown everything on a strong fire. When the liver takes a reddish color, it is ready. If it is overdone, it becomes too hard. Salt just before removing from the saucepan. 162. Fried liver. Fegato al tegame. Clean and trim the liver, then cut it in slices half an inch thick. Dip in flour and place, without delay, in a saucepan in which a small onion has been browned in butter. Salt just before serving. 163. Polenta with sausages. Polenta con le salsicce. The polenta is a very popular dish in northern Italy and can be prepared in various ways. Always, however, it is better to serve with the addition of sausages or with birds or tomato paste. The polenta is practically cornmeal and it is made with the so-called farina gialla or yellow flour. The ingredients for a good polenta are 1 pound of cornmeal, preferably granulous, 1 quart and a half of water, salted in proportion, 1 piece of butter, 1 cup and a half of milk. Pour the meal little by little into boiling water, continually stirring with a wooden spoon. When the meal is half cooked, put the butter and pour the milk little by little. When the polenta boils, place on the fire in a little saucepan a tablespoonful of olive oil or a small piece of butter. When the oil is hot or the butter is melted, put some sausages repeatedly pricked with a fork. When the sausages are cooked, pour the polenta hot in a dish and place the sausages and the gravy in the cavity practiced in the middle. Serve hot. In cooking the sausages 2 or 3 bay leaves may be added and removed before serving. 164. Sausages with onions. Salsicce alla cipollata. The salsicce alla cipollata are prepared with fresh and lean pork meat and bacon in equal quantity, chopped fine and seasoned with salt, pepper and spices. Add a proportional quantity of onions chopped very fine, not too much, however. Fill with the hash the prepared entrails, tie every 2 inches to divide the sausages. Celery. Sedano. Beside being used as a condiment with a great quantity of dishes, the celery may be prepared in various different ways to form appetizing vegetable dishes. We give here a certain number of those that appear most commonly on Italian tables. 165. Celery with butter. Sedano al burro. 2 heads of celery for each person. Clean and trim, removing the sprigs that are too hard, and the leaves that are to be cut where they begin to be green. Finally trim the stem. Then wash repeatedly in running water, drain and put to boil in salted boiling water. Remove when cooked and drain again. About 3/4 of an hour before serving, melt a piece of butter in a saucepan and brown the celery, turning them often for about 10 minutes. After that pour over hot stock, soup stock or chicken broth. Cover the saucepan and parboil. A few moments before serving, season with brown stock, if you have any at hand, otherwise with salt and pepper only. 166. Celery au jus. Sedano al sugo. Select 9 or 10 heads, neither too hard nor too soft, and cut them about 4 inches from the root. Remove the green and hard branches and trim the root, cutting the latter to a point. Scald the celery after washing well in salted boiling water. 10 minutes will be sufficient. Dip in cold water, open well the leaves and wash again carefully. Drain and make bunches of 2 or 3 heads each that you will put in a saucepan with a pint of broth or water and half a cup of good fat, onion and carrot chopped, salt and pepper. Cover and let it simmer for about 2 hours. Then remove the celery, drain and serve. 167. Sauce for celery au jus. Salsa per sedani al sugo. The celery prepared as above are seasoned with the following sauce. Make a roux, melting a piece of butter and browning an equal weight of flour. Stir for about 3 minutes on the fire, after which thin the roux with a little brown stock or with bouillon cubes diluted in water. Continue stirring and reduce the sauce. Then rub through a sieve, pour over the celery and serve hot. 168. Fried celery. Sedani fritti. This is a convenient way to prepare leftover celery that is still too good to be thrown away. Clean the leftover celery, removing as best you can the sauce in which they were served, dip in frying paste, flour and egg, fry and serve with lemon. 169. Puree of Salary. Macco di sedani. Take some big roots of celery, prepare as usual, and wash in running water. Boil in salted water, crush and rub through a sieve. Put in a saucepan this puree, with a piece of butter, salt, flour, and a little cream or milk. The milk may be substituted with good soup stock or brown stock. Just before serving, add a little powdered sugar. 170. Stew. Stufato. The Italian stufato is somewhat different from the stewed meat that is known under the name of Irish stew. It corresponds to the French daube and is prepared in Italy in many different ways. An excellent stufato can be made in the following way. Chop fine 2 bunches of parsley, a small carrot, half a medium-sized onion, a little piece of scallion and 2 bay leaves. Brown with a good piece of butter in a saucepan in which 1½ tablespoonful of oil have been previously poured. The meat must have been prepared beforehand, that is to say washed, trimmed and larded. When half cooked, season moderately with salt and pepper. If necessary, moisten with broth or water. During the cooking, the saucepan must be covered with its cover and with a sheet of paper greased with fat or oil. The stufato will be ready after about 3 hours cooking on a low fire. 171. Southern Stew. Stufato meridionale. Put the piece of meat in a saucepan of such a size that it remains completely filled, moisten with 2 cups of water and 2 of white wine, season with salt and pepper, and cook for 5 hours on a low fire. 172. Stew Milanese. Stufato alla Milanese. Beat and flatten a good piece of meat and lard with bacon or ham cut in small pieces. Season with salt, pepper and a taste of cinnamon. Sprinkle flour over the meat. Place in a saucepan a little fat of beef chopped with a middle-sized onion and brown with a piece of butter. When the onion is browned, remove it and place the meat over the melted butter. Brown with the melted butter. Then fill the saucepan with half water, half red wine, but only when the meat is browned from all sides. Cover the saucepan the best you can, with cover and greased paper and let it simmer for 5 or 6 hours on a very low fire. After removing the stew, let it cool, rub the gravy through a sieve, put again on the fire and serve hot. 173. French Stew. Stufato alla francese. Prepare on the bottom of the saucepan a layer of thin slices of ham, on which place several little cubes also of bacon. In the middle place a bunch of parsley, and around this some cloves, half an onion sliced, a few carrots in little cubes, several young onions, bay leaf, salt and pepper. On this bed lay the meat that may be larded with bacon or ham and seasoned with salt, pepper and a taste of cinnamon. Pour on the meat 2 cups of soup stock or water and 1 cup of white wine. Cover the saucepan hermetically and cook on a very low fire for 5 hours. When the stufato is to be served cold, the gravy is to be rubbed through a sieve before it gets cold. Note. In these and similar dishes we have indicated the use of wine, which is a common ingredient, in small quantities in Italian and French cooking. This, however, can always be dispensed with if its taste is not appreciated or for any other reason. End of section 13.
Italian Cookbook by Maria Gentile. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. 174. Trout Alpine. Trota all'alpigiana. These are many ways to prepare this delicious fish, found in abundance in the many streams of clear water that run from the Alps and the Apennine mountains. Often the trout is cooked in wine, but of course this part may be changed. For the trota all'alpigiana, so called because it is the favorite dish of Piedmont, the trout must be cleaned, scalded, washed, wiped, then salted and left under the action of the salt for about an hour. Pour on a fish kettle 1 quart of white wine, to which will be added 3 medium-sized onions, a few cloves, 2 sections of garlic, and a little bunch made of thyme, bay leaf, basil, or mint. Finally, a piece of butter as large as an egg, dipped in flour. Then put the trout in the fish kettle and place on a strong fire. When the liquid has boiled, the trout is cooked. Remove the onions and the bunch of greens, and serve the trout with its gravy and some parsley. 175. Trout Lombard. Trota fritta. Clean, scale, wash and wipe the trout. Salt and leave for half an hour. Fill with water half a fish kettle. Add half a lemon, 2 bay leaves, 1 carrot light or 10 berries of pepper, 1 onion divided into 4 parts, salt and 3 cloves. When the water is lukewarm, dip in the trout. Cook on a moderate fire and serve the trout with parsley, slices of lemon and young potatoes boiled. A good fish sauce ought to accompany it. 176. Fried trout. Trota fritta. Small and young trouts are best for frying. Scale, clean, wash and wipe. Then dip in flour and fry like the other fish in oil or in butter. Serve with browned parsley and lemon. 177. Trout with anchovies. Trota alla acciughe. Scale, wash and wipe the trouts. Cut the sides and place to pickle with salt, pepper berries, garlic, parsley and onions chopped fine, with mushrooms chopped fine with thyme, bay leaf and mint, all seasoned with good olive oil. Rub the pickled pieces at the sieve and place it and the trout in a baking tin. Bake it in the oven and serve with anchovy sauce, No. 17. 178. Eggs with onion sauce. Uova trippate. Prepare some hard-boiled eggs, shell and cut into discs 1/3 of an inch thick. Melt in a saucepan a piece of butter in which brown half an onion cut into thin slices, to be removed from the butter when browned. Then add to the butter 2 teaspoonfuls of flour, mix but don't allow to brown, thin with a cup of hot broth, add salt and pepper and let it simmer for 10 minutes. Put the sliced eggs in the sauce to warm them. Stir a little, but carefully to avoid breaking them, and do not boil again. Just before serving add to the sauce a teaspoonful of cream and stir carefully. 179. Eggs with ham. Uova al prosciutto. Place in a frying pan as many pieces of butter, large like a nut, as there are eggs to be cooked. For each piece of butter, put a little slice of ham and place the frying pan on the fire. As soon as the butter is melted, break an egg on each slice of ham. Let cook for 10 minutes on a moderate fire. 180. Eggs with tomato sauce. Uova al pomidoro. Prepare some hard-boiled eggs, cut them through the middle lengthwise. Place in good order upon a plate, and pour some good tomato sauce, taking care not to cover the upper part of the eggs, which must emerge from the sauce. Instead of the tomato, the eggs may be arranged with a balsamella sauce, No. 54. 181. Scrambled Eggs. Uova strapazzate. Break the eggs in a plate, assuring that they are all fresh. Melt in a saucepan a piece of butter about as big as an egg. When it is melted, pour the egg and scramble them with a fork on a low fire. When the eggs are cooked, season moderately with salt and butter. Just when you take them away from the fire and before serving, add a tablespoonful of milk or liquid cream. Serve hot with a little grated cheese. The scrambled eggs can be served with points of asparagus, truffles, mushrooms, etc., which are prepared just as if they were to go in an omelette. 182. Pudding of hazelnuts. Budino di nocciuole. Shove half a pound of hazelnuts in warm water and dry them well at the sun or on the fire. Then grind them very fine, together with sugar, of a weight somewhat less than the nuts. Put 1 quart of milk on the fire, and when it begins to boil, put 2/3 pound of lady fingers or macaroons crumbled and let it boil for 5 minutes, adding a small piece of butter. Rub everything through a sieve and put back on the fire with the nuts to dissolve the sugar. Let it cool and add 6 eggs, first the yolks, then the white beaten. Pour in a mold greased with butter and sprinkled with breadcrumbs ground fine. The mold must not be all full. Bake in the oven and serve cold. This dose will be sufficient for 8 or 10 persons. 183. Crisp Biscuits. Biscotti croccanti. 1 pound of flour, half a pound granulated sugar, 1/4 pound of sweet almonds, whole and shelled, mixed to a few pine seeds, a piece of butter 1½ ounce, a pinch of anise seeds, 5 eggs, a pinch of salt. Leave back the almonds and pine seeds to add them afterward, and mix everything with 4 eggs, so as to use the 5th if it is necessary to make a soft dough. Divide into 4 cakes 1/2 inch thick and as large as a hand, place them in a receptacle greased with butter and sprinkled with flour. Glaze the cakes with yolk of eggs. Bake in the oven, but only as much as will still permit cutting the cakes into slices, which you will do the day after, as the crust will then be softened. Put the slices back in the oven, so that they will be toasted on both sides and you will have the crisp biscuits. 184. Soft Biscuits. Biscotti teneri. For these biscuits it will be necessary to have a tin box about 4 inches wide and a little less long than the oven used. In this way the biscuits will have a corner on both sides, and, if cut a little more than 1/2 inch, they will be of the right proportion. The ingredients needed are: flour, about 2 ounces, potato meal, a little less, sugar, 4 ounces, 1/4 pound, sweet almonds, 1½ ounce, candied orange or angelica, 1 ounce, fruit preserve, 1 ounce, 3 eggs. Skin the almonds, cut them in half lengthwise, and dry in the sun or at the fire. Pastry cooks usually leave them with the skin, but it is much preferable to skin them. Cut in little cubes the candied fruits and the preserve. Stir for a long while, about half an hour, the sugar in the egg yolks and a little flour, then add the white of the eggs, well beaten, and when everything is well beaten, add the flour, letting it fall from the sieve. Mix slowly, and scatter on the mixing the almonds and the cubes of candied and preserved fruit. Grease and sprinkle the tin box with flour. Bake in the oven and cut the biscuits the day after. If desired, these can also be roasted on both sides. 185. Biscuits Sultan. Biscotto alla sultana. Granulated sugar, 6 ounces. Flour, 4 ounces. Potato meal, 2 ounces. Currants, 3 ounces. Candied fruits, 1 ounce. 5 eggs. A taste of lemon peel. 2 tablespoonfuls of brandy. Put first on the fire the currants and the candied fruits cut in very little cubes, with as much brandy or cognac as is necessary to cover them. When it boils, light the brandy, and let it burn out of the fire, until the liquor is all consumed. Then remove the currants and candy, and let them dry in a folded napkin. Then stir for half an hour the sugar with the egg yolks and a taste of lemon peel. Beat well the white of the eggs and pour them on the sugar and yolks. Add the flour and potato meal, letting them fall from the sieve, and stir slowly until everything is well mixed together. Add the currants and the pieces of candied fruits, and pour the mixing in a smooth mold or in a high and round cake dish. Grease the mold or the dish with butter and sprinkle with powdered sugar or flour. Put at once in the oven to avoid that the currants and the candied fruits fall in the oven. 186. Margherita cake. Pasta margherita. Potato meal 3 ounces. Sugar 6 ounces. 4 eggs. Lemon juice. Beat well the egg yolks with the sugar, add the potato meal and the lemon juice and stir everything for half an hour. Finally beat well the whites and mix the rest, stirring continually but slowly. Pour the mixture in a smooth and round mold, greased with butter and sprinkled with powdered sugar. Put at once in the oven. Remove from the mold when cold and dust with powdered sugar and vanilla. 187. Mantua tart. Torta mantovana. Flour 6 ounces. Sugar 6 ounces. Butter 5 ounces. Sweet almonds and pine seeds 2 ounces. 1 whole egg. 4 egg yolks. A taste of lemon peel. First work well with a ladle the eggs with the sugar, then pour the flour little by little, still stirring, and finally the butter, previously melted in a double steamer. Put the mixture in a pie dish greased with butter and sprinkled with flour or breadcrumbs ground. On top put the almonds and the pine seeds. Cut the latter in half and cut the almonds previously skinned in warm water, each in 8 or 10 pieces. This tart must not be thicker than 1 inch, so that it can dry well in the oven, which must not be too hot. Sprinkle with powdered sugar and serve cold. 188. Curly Tart. Torta ricciolina. Sweet almonds with a few bitter ones, 4 ounces. Granulated sugar, 6 ounces. Candied fruits or angelica, 2½ ounces. Butter, 2 ounces. Lemon peel. Mix 2 eggs with flour, flatten the paste to a thin sheet on a breadboard and cut into thin noodles. In a corner of the breadboard make a heap of the almonds with the sugar, the candied fruit cut in pieces and the grated lemon peel. All this cut and crush so as to reduce the mixture in little pieces. Then take a pie dish and without greasing it, spread a layer of noodles on the bottom, then pour part of the mixture, then another layer of noodles, and continue until there remains no more material, trying to have the tart at least 1 inch thick. When it is so prepared, cover with the melted butter, using a brush to apply it evenly. End of section 14. Of the Italian Cookbook by Maria Gentile. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. 189. Almond Cake. Bocca di Dama. Granulated sugar, 9 ounces. Very fine Hungarian flour, 5 ounces. Sweet almonds with some bitter ones, 2 ounces. 6 whole eggs and 3 egg yolks. Taste of lemon peel. After skinning the almonds in warm water and drying them well, grind or better pound them well together with a tablespoonful of sugar and mix well with the flour. Put the rest of the sugar in a deep dish with the egg yolks and the grated lemon peel, just a taste, and stir with a ladle for a quarter of an hour. In another dish, beat the 6 whites of eggs, and when they have become quite thick, mix them with the other ingredients, stirring slowly everything together. To bake, place the mixture in a baking tin greased evenly with butter and sprinkled with powdered sugar and flour. 190. Cornmeal cakes. Pasta di farina gialla. Cornmeal, 7½ ounces. Wheat flour, 5½ ounces. Granulated sugar, 5½ ounces. Butter, 3½ ounces. Lard, 2 ounces. A pinch of anise seed. 1 egg. Mix together the cornmeal, the flour and the anise seed and knead with the butter, the lard and the egg that quantity that you can, forming a loaf that you will put aside. What remains is to be kneaded with the water forming another loaf. Then mix the 2 loaves and knead a little, not much because the dough must remain soft. Flatten with the rolling pin until it becomes 1/4 inch thick, sprinkle with flour and cut in different sizes and shapes with thin stamps. Grease a baking tin with lard, sprinkle with flour, glaze with the egg, bake and dust with powdered sugar. 191. Biscuit Biscotto. 6 eggs. Granulated sugar, 9 ounces. Flour, 4 ounces. Potato meal, 2 ounces. Taste of lemon peel. Stir for at least half an hour the yolks of the eggs with the sugar and a tablespoonful only of the flour and meal, using a ladle. Beat the whites of the eggs until they are quite firm, mix slowly with the first mixture, and when they are well incorporated, pour over from a sieve the flour and the potato meal, previously dried in the sun or on the fire. Bake in a tin where the mixture comes about 1 inch and a half thick, previously greasing the tin with cold butter and sprinkle with powdered sugar mixed with flour. In these cakes with beaten whites the following method can also be followed. Mix and stir first the yolks with the sugar, then put the flour, then, after a good kneading, beat the whites until they are firm. Pour 2 tablespoonfuls to soften the mixture, then the rest little by little. 192. Cake Madeleine Pasta Maddalena. Sugar, 4½ ounces. Flour, 3 ounces. Butter, 1 ounce. Egg yolks, 4. Whites of eggs, 3. A pinch of bicarbonate of soda. A taste of lemon peel. First mix and stir the yolks with the sugar, and when they have become whitish, add the flour and stir for 15 minutes more. Mix with the butter, melting or softening it fine if it is hard, and finally add the whites when they are well beaten. The flour must be previously dried in the sun or on the fire. This cake may be given different shapes, but keep it always thin and in little volume. It can be put in little molds greased with butter and sprinkled with flour, or else in a baking tin, keeping it not more than ½ inch thick, and cutting it after baking in the shape of diamonds, and dusting with powdered sugar. 193. Almond crisp tart Croccante. Sweet almonds, 4½ ounces. Granulated sugar, 3½ ounces. Skin the almonds, divide the 2 parts and cut each part into small pieces. Put these almonds so cut at the fire and dry them until they take a yellowish color, but do not toast. Meanwhile, put the sugar on the fire in a saucepan and, when it is perfectly melted, pour the almonds hot and already slightly browned. Now lower the fire and be careful not to allow the compound to be overdone. The precise point is known when the mixture acquires a cinnamon color. Then pour little by little in a cold mold, previously greased with butter or oil. Press with a lemon against the walls of the mold, making the mixture as thin as possible. Remove from the mold when perfectly cooled, and, if it is difficult to do so, dip the mold in boiling water. The almonds can also be dried in the sun and chopped fine, adding a small piece of butter when they are in the sugar. 194. Wafer Biscuits Cialdoni. Put in a kettle flour, 3 ounces, brown sugar, 1 ounce, lard virgin, ½ ounce, cold water, 7 tablespoonfuls. First dilute the flour and the sugar in the water, then add the lard. Put on the fire the iron for waffles, or better an appropriated iron for flattened wafers. When it is quite hot, open it, and place each time ½ tablespoonful of the paste. Close the iron and press well. Pass over the fire on both sides, trim all around with a knife, and open the iron when you see that the wafer is browned. Then detach it from one side of the iron, and hot as it is, roll it on the iron itself or on a napkin using a little stick. This operation must be made with great rapidity, because if the wafer gets cold, it cannot be rolled. Should the wafers remain attached to the iron, grease it from time to time, and if they are not firm enough, add a little flour. These wafer biscuits are generally served with whipped cream. 195. Quince Cake Cotognata. The ingredients are about 6 pounds of quinces and 4 pounds of granulated sugar. Put on the fire the apples covered with water, and when they begin to crack, remove them, skin and scrape to put together all the pulp. Rub the latter through a sieve. Put back the pulp on the fire with the sugar and stir continually in order that it may not attach to the bottom of the kettle. It will be enough to boil for 7 or 8 minutes, and remove when it begins to form pieces when lifted with the ladle. Now in order to prepare the quince cake, spread it on a board to the thickness of about a silver dollar and dry it in the sun covered with cheesecloth to keep away the flies. When it is dry, cut it in the form of chocolate tablets and remove each piece from the board passing the blade of a knife underneath. If it is wished to make it crisp, melt about 3½ pounds of granulated sugar with 2 tablespoonfuls of water, and when the sugar has boiled enough to make the thread, smear every one of the little quince cakes with it. If the sugar becomes too hard during the operation, put it back on the fire with a little water and make it boil again. When the sugar is dry on one side and on the edge, smear the other side. 196. Portuguese cake. Focaccia alla portoghese. Sweet almonds, 5 ounces. Granulated sugar, 5 ounces. Potato meal, 1½ ounce. 3 eggs. 1 big orange or 2 small. First mix the yolks of the eggs with the sugar, then add the flour, then the almonds skinned and chopped fine, then the orange juice, through a colander, then a taste of orange peel. Finally add to the mixture the whites of the eggs well beaten. Put in a paper mold greased evenly with butter, with a thickness of about an inch, and bake in a very moderately hot oven. After baked, cover with a white glaze or frost, made with powdered sugar, lemon juice, and the white of eggs. 197. Macaroons. Amaretti. 1. Granulated sugar, 9 ounces. Sweet almonds, 3½ ounces. Bitter almonds, half of the above quantity. Whites of egg, 2. Skin and dry the almonds, then chop them very fine. Mix the sugar and the whites of egg, and stir for about half an hour, then add the almonds to form a rather hard paste. Of this make little balls, as large as a small walnut. If the paste is too soft, add a little butter. If too hard, add a little white of egg, this time beaten. Were it desired to give the macaroons a brownish color, mix with the paste a little burnt sugar. As you form the little ball, that you will flatten to the thickness of 1/3 of an inch, put them over wafers or on pieces of paper or in a baking tin greased with butter and sprinkled with half flour and half powdered sugar. Dispose them at a certain distance from one another, as they will enlarge and swell, remaining empty inside. Bake in an oven moderately hot. 2. Powdered sugar, 10½ ounces. Sweet almonds, 3 ounces. Bitter almonds, 1 ounce. 2 whites of egg. Skin the almonds and dry them in the sun or on the fire, then chop and grind very fine with 1 white of egg poured in various times. When this is done, put half of the sugar, stirring and kneading it with your hand. Then pour everything in a large bowl and, always mixing, add half of the other white of egg, then the other half of the sugar, and finally the other half of the white. In this way, a homogeneous mixture will be obtained of the right firmness. Shake into a kind of a stick, and cut it in rounds all equal, 1/3 of an inch thick. Take them up one by one with moistened fingers and make little balls as large as a walnut. Flatten them to the thickness of 1/3 of an inch, and for the rest proceed as said above, but dust with powdered sugar before putting in a hot oven. With this dose about 30 macaroons can be obtained. End of section 15. Italian Cookbook by Maria Gentile. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. 198. Farina cakes. Pasticcini di semolino. Farina, 6½ ounces. Sugar, 3½ ounces. Pine seeds, 2 ounces. Butter, a small piece. Milk, 1 quart. 4 eggs. A pinch of salt. Taste of lemon peel. Cook the farina in the milk, and when it begins to thicken, pour the pine seeds, previously chopped fine and pounded with the sugar, then the butter and the rest, less the eggs, which must be put in last when the mixture has completely cooled. Then place the whole well mixed in the molds, greased evenly with butter and sprinkled with breadcrumbs ground fine, and bake. 199. Rice tart. Torta di riso. Milk, 1 quart. Rice, 7 ounces. Sugar, 5½ ounces. Sweet almonds with 4 bitter ones, 3½ ounces. Candied cedar, angelica, 1 ounce.
3 whole eggs, 5 egg yolks, taste of lemon peel, a pinch of salt. Skin the almonds and grind or pound them with 2 tablespoonfuls of the sugar. Cut the candied cedar in very small cubes. Cook the rice in the milk until it is quite firm. Put in all the ingredients except the eggs, which are added when the mixture is cold. Put the entire mixture in a baking tin, greased with butter and sprinkled with breadcrumbs ground fine. Harden it in the oven and after 24 hours cut the tart into diamonds. When serving, dust with powdered sugar. 200 Farina tart Torta di semolino. Milk, 1 quart. Farina finely ground, 4½ ounces. Sugar, 4½ ounces. Sweet almonds with 3 bitter, 3½ ounces. Butter, a small piece. 4 eggs. Taste of lemon peel, a pinch of salt. Skin the almonds in warm water and ground or pound very fine with all the sugar, to be mixed 1 tablespoonful at a time. Cook the farina in the milk and before removing from the fire add the butter and the almonds, which will dissolve easily, being mixed with the sugar. Then put the pinch of salt and wait until it becomes lukewarm to add the eggs, that are to be beaten whole previously. Pour the mixture in a baking tin, greased evenly with butter, sprinkled with breadcrumbs, and of such a size that the tart has the thickness of an inch or less. Put in the oven, remove from the mold when cold, and serve whole or cut into sections. 201 Pudding of rice meal. Budino di farina di riso. Milk, 1 quart. Rice meal, 7 ounces. Sugar, 4½ ounces. 6 eggs. A pinch of salt. Taste of vanilla. First dissolve the rice meal in half a pint of the milk when cold and pour it in the rest of the milk when it is boiling. This is done to prevent the formation of lumps. When the meal is cooked add the sugar, the butter and the salt. Remove from the fire and when it is lukewarm mix the eggs, beaten, and the taste of vanilla. Then bake the pudding like all the others and serve warm. 202 Bread pudding. Budino di pane. Soft breadcrumb, 5 ounces. Butter, 3½ ounces. 4 eggs. Taste of lemon peel. A pinch of salt. Cut the breadcrumb into pieces and soak in cold milk. Then rub through a sieve. Melt the butter in a double boiler, in a vessel immersed in boiling water, and mix with the eggs until butter and eggs are incorporated to each other. Add the breadcrumb and the sugar and mix well. Pour the mixture in a mold, greased with butter and sprinkled with breadcrumb ground fine, and bake like other puddings. 203 Potato pudding. Budino di patate. Potatoes, big and mealy, 1½ pound. Sugar, 5½ ounces. Butter, 1½ ounces. Flour, a tablespoonful. Milk, half a pint. 6 eggs. A pinch of salt. Paste of cinnamon or lemon peel. Boil or steam the potatoes, skin and rub through a sieve. Place them back again on the fire with the butter, the flour and the milk, all poured little by little, stirring well with the ladle, then add the sugar, the salt and the cinnamon or lemon peel, just a taste, and mix everything together well. Remove from the fire and, when the mixture is lukewarm or cold, add the eggs, first the yolks, then the whites beaten. Bake like all other puddings and serve hot. 204 Lemon pudding. Budino di limone. 1 big lemon. Sugar, 6 ounces. Sweet almonds with 3 bitter ones, 6 ounces. 6 eggs. Cook the lemon in water, for which 2 hours will be enough. Remove dry and rub through a sieve. Before rubbing, however, taste it, because if it has a bitter taste, it must be kept in cold water until it has lost that unpleasant taste. Add the sugar, the almonds skinned and ground very fine, and the 6 yolks of the eggs. Beat the whites of the eggs and add them to the mixture, that will then be put in a mold and baked like all other puddings. 205 Pudding of roasted almonds. Budino di mandorle tostate. Milk, 1 quart. Sugar, 3½ ounces. Sweet almonds, 2 ounces. Ladyfinger biscuits, 2 ounces. 3 eggs.
First prepare the almonds, that is to say, skin them in warm water and toast them on the fire over a plate of iron or a stone, then grind very fine. Boil the sugar and the lady fingers, broken in little pieces, in the milk, mixing well. After half an hour of boiling, keeping always stirred, rub the mixture through a sieve, then add the toasted and ground almonds. When it is cold add the beaten eggs, pour it in a smooth mold, whose bottom will be covered with a film of liquefied sugar, and cook in a double boiler, that is to say, put the mold well closed in a kettle full of boiling water. When cooked, let it cool and place in ice box before serving. 206. Crisp cake in double boiler. Croccante a bagno Maria. Sugar, 5½ ounces. Sweet almonds, 3 ounces. Egg yolks, 5. Milk, 1 pint. Skin the almonds and chop them in little pieces about as big as a grain of wheat. Put on the fire 2/3 of the sugar, and when it is all melted, pour the almonds and stir continually with the ladle until they have taken the color of cinnamon. Then put them in a tin greased with butter, and when they are cold, pound them very fine with the remaining third of the sugar. Add the yolks and then the milk. Mix well and pour the mixture in a mold with a hole in the middle and greased evenly with butter. Place the mold in a double boiler so that it will be cooked by steam. 206. Stuffed peaches. Pesche ripiene. 6 big peaches not very ripe. 4 or 5 ladyfinger biscuits. Granulated sugar, 3 ounces. 2 ounces sweet almonds with 3 peach kernels. Candied fruit, angelica, 1/2 ounce. Cut the peaches in 2 parts, remove the stones and enlarge somewhat the cavity where they were with the point of a knife. Mix the peach pulp that you extract with the almonds, already skinned, and grind the pulp and almonds very fine together with 2 ounces of the sugar. To this mixture add the ladyfingers crumbled and the candied fruits. Cut in very small cubes. This will be the stuffing with which you will fill the cavities of the 12 halves of the peach. These you will place in a row in a baking tin, with the stuffing above. Add the remaining ounce of sugar and bake in oven with a moderate fire. 207. Milk gnocchi. Gnocchi di latte. 1 quart of milk. Sugar, 9 ounces. Starch in powder, 4 ounces. 8 yolks of eggs. A taste of vanilla. Mix everything together as you would do for a cream, and put on the fire in a saucepan, continually stirring with a ladle. When the mixture has become hard, keep it a few moments more on the fire, and then pour it in a plate to make it about 1/2 inch thick, and cut it into diamonds when it is cold. Put these diamonds one over the other with symmetry in a baking tin or in a fireproof glass plate, with some little pieces of butter in between, and brown them a little in the oven. Serve hot. 208. Sabayon. Zabaione. Yolks of 3 eggs. Granulated sugar, 2 ounces. Marsala or sherry wine, 5 tablespoonfuls. A dash of cinnamon. First stir with the ladle the yolks and the sugar until they become almost white, then add the wine. When ready to serve, place the saucepan in another one containing hot water and beat until the sugar is melted and the egg begins to thicken. End of section 16. Italian Cookbook by Maria Gentile. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Syrups. Sciroppi. The syrups of acidulated fruits, diluted with ice water, are refreshing and pleasant beverages, greatly appreciated during the summer months. It is well, however, not to drink them until the digestion is completed, because they may disturb it on account of the sugar that they contain. 209. Red currant or gooseberry syrup. Sciroppo di ribes. Remove the stems from the bunches of gooseberry and place them in an earthen vase, to be kept in a cool place. When it has begun to ferment, which may happen after 3 or 4 days, sink the surface film and stir with a ladle twice a day, continuing this operation until it has stopped raising. Then put in a cheesecloth, letting the juice come out through pressing with the hands or in a machine. Pass the juice through a filter 2 or 3 times if necessary, until you obtain a limpid liquid. Then put it on the fire, and when it begins to boil, pour in it granulated sugar and citric acid in the following proportions: liquid 6 pounds, sugar 8 pounds, citric acid 1 ounce. That is to say for each 3 parts of the liquid, add 4 parts of sugar and 1 ounce of citric acid for 8 pounds of sugar mixed with 6 pounds of liquid. Stir continually with the ladle, so that the sugar does not stick to the bottom. Taste it to add some more citric acid if you judge it necessary. Then let it cool and place in bottles to be sealed. When a beverage is to be prepared, pour in a tumbler less than half an inch of syrup for a tumblerful of ice water. 210. Raspberry syrup. Sciroppo di lampone. This is prepared like the other explained above, but, since this fruit contains less gluten than the gooseberry, the period of fermentation will be briefer. The large quantity of sugar used in these syrups is necessary for their conservation, and the citric acid is used to correct the excessive sweetness. 211. Lemon syrup. Sciroppo di limone. 3 big lemons, 1½ pound of sugar, a tumbler of water. Skin the lemons, removing the internal pulp without squeezing it and taking off all seeds. Put the water on the fire with the skin of one of the lemons cut in a thin ribbon-like strip with a small knife. When the water is near boiling, put in the sugar, then remove the lemon skin and immerse the pulp of the 3 lemons. Boil until the syrup is condensed and cooked right, which is known by the pearls that it makes boiling and the color of white wine that it acquires. Preserve in a bottle and when needed dilute in a tumbler of ice water. A small quantity will make a delightful beverage. 212. Hard blackberry syrup. Sciroppo di amarena. Use hard but ripe blackberries. They must be of the sour kind, but, as said, they must not be unripe. Remove the stems and put the berries into a vase with a good piece of whole cinnamon. The fermentation will happen after 48 hours, and as soon as the berries begin to rise, stir them from time to time. Then press them to extract the juice, with a pressing machine if you have one, or with your hands, squeezing them a few at a time in a cheesecloth. When the liquid has rested for a while, filter it until it becomes quite clear. When it has been depurated, put it on the fire in the following proportion and with a piece of cinnamon that was already immersed in the cherries. 12 pounds of liquid to 16 pounds of sugar and 2 ounces of citric acid, or 3 parts of liquid to 4 of sugar, and the citric acid as in the above proportion. Before putting in the sugar and the citric acid, wait until the liquid is quite hot, just before boiling. Then stir continually. The boiling must be brief, 4 or 5 minutes are sufficient to incorporate the sugar in the liquid. When removing the syrup from the fire, put it in an earthen vase and bottle when quite cold. Cork the bottles well and keep in a cool place. 213. Orgeat, orzata. Sweet almonds with 10 or 12 bitter ones, 7 ounces. Water 1½ pounds. Granulated sugar 2 pounds. Skin the almonds and grind them very fine, or better pound them in a mortar, moistening from time to time with orange flower water, of which you will use about 2 tablespoonfuls. When the almonds have been reduced to a paste, dissolve the latter in 1/3 of the water and filter the juice through a cheesecloth, squeezing hard. Put the paste back in the grinder or in the mortar, grind or pound them, then filter again with another third of the water. Repeat the same operation for a 3rd time, then put on the fire the liquid so obtained and just before boiling put the sugar, mix, stir and boil for about 20 minutes. Let it cool, then bottle and keep in a cool place. The orgeat does not ferment and the thick liquid may be diluted in water, 1/2 inch for a whole tumbler of iced water. 214. Apricot marmalade. Conserva di albicocche. Use good and ripe apricots. It is a mistake to believe that jam or marmalade can be obtained with any kind of fruit. Take off the stones, put them on the fire without water, and while they boil, stir with a ladle to reduce them to pulp. When they have boiled for about half an hour, rub them through a sieve to separate the pulp of the fruit from the skins that are to be thrown away, then put them back on the fire with granulated sugar in the proportion of 8/10, that is to say 8 pounds of sugar for 10 pounds of apricot pulp. Stir often with the ladle until the mixture acquires the firmness of marmalade, which will be known by putting from time to time a teaspoonful in a plate and seeing that it flows slowly. When ready, remove from the fire, let it cool, and then put in vases well covered and with a film of paraffin or tissue paper dipped in alcohol so that the air may not pass in. 215. Preserve of quince. Conserva di cotogna soda. The ingredients are quinces, peeled and with the core removed, and granulated sugar in the proportion of 8/10 of quinces to 5/10 of sugar, or a little more than 1½ quinces for 1 part of sugar. Dissolve the sugar on the fire with half a glass of water, boil a little, then remove from the fire and put aside. Cut the quinces, peeled and coreless, in very thin slices, and put them on the fire with a glass of water, supposing the quantity to be about 2 pounds. Keep covered, but stir once in a while with the ladle, trying to break the slices and reduce them to a paste. When the quinces are made tender through cooking, pour in the thick syrup of sugar already prepared, mix and stir and let the mixture boil with the cover removed until the preserve is ready, which will be known when it begins to fall like shreds when taken up with the ladle. Let it cool and put in well-covered jars. Ices, gelati. Although it is in America that there is a greater consumption of ice cream, it is in Italy that it was first made, and in various European capitals it is the Italian gelatiere who prepares the frozen delicacy. A few Italian recipes of gelati will then be acceptable, we believe, as a conclusion to this little work. 216. Biscuit. Pezzo in gelo. Make a cream with water 5 ounces, sugar 2 ounces, the yolks of 4 eggs, a taste of vanilla. Put it on the fire stirring continually, and when it begins to stick to the ladle, remove from the fire and whip to a stiff froth. Then mix about 5 ounces of ordinary whipped cream, put in a mold, and pack in salt and ice. Keep in ice for about 3 hours. This dose will be sufficient for 7 or 8 persons. 217. Lemon ice. Gelato di limone. Granulated sugar 3/4 of a pound. Water a pint. Lemons 3, good sized. Boil the sugar in the water, with some little pieces of lemon peel, for about 10 minutes in an uncovered kettle. When this syrup is cold, squeeze the lemons one at a time, tasting the mixture to regulate the degree of acidity. Then strain and put in the freezer packed with salt and ice. 218. Strawberry ice. Gelato di fragola. Ripe strawberries 3/4 of a pound. Granulated sugar 3/4 of a pound. Water 1 pint. A big lemon. An orange. Boil the sugar in the water for 10 minutes in an uncovered kettle. Rub through a sieve the strawberries and the juice of the lemon and the orange. Add the syrup after straining, mix everything and pour the mixture in the freezer. 219. Orange ice. Gelato di aranci. 4 big oranges, 1 lemon, 1 pint of water, sugar 3/4 of a pound. Squeeze the oranges and the lemon and strain the juice. Boil the sugar in the water for 10 minutes, put in the juice when cold, strain again and put in the freezer. 220. Pistache ice cream. Gelato di pistacchi. Milk 1 quart, sugar 6 ounces, pistaches 2 ounces. Skin the pistaches in warm water and grind them very fine with a tablespoonful of the sugar. Then put in a saucepan with the yolks and the sugar, mixing everything together. Add the milk and put the mixture on the fire stirring with the ladle, and when it is condensed like cream, let it cool and put in the freezer. 221. Tutti frutti. To make this ice, a special ice cream mold is necessary, or a tin receptacle that can be closed hermetically. Take several varieties of fruits of the season, ripe and of good quality, that is to say, strawberries, cherries, plums, apricots, a big peach, a good-sized pear, a piece of good cantaloupe. Peel, skin, and remove stones and cores of all these fruits. Then cut them into very thin slices, throwing away the cores and stones. When the fruit is prepared in this manner, weigh it, and sprinkle over 1/5 of its weight of powdered sugar, squeezing also 1 lemon. Mix everything and let the mixture rest for half an hour. Put a sheet of paper on the bottom of the mold that is to be filled with the fruit pressed together, close, and pack in salt and ice, keeping it for 2 hours or a little less. This is not the tutti frutti ice cream as is known in America, but a macédoine of fruits that comes very pleasant to the taste in the summer months.
End of section 17 and end of the Italian cookbook by Maria Gentile. Recorded by Diana Moilinger.